Hello, everyone. My name is Zayna Coleman, and the historical figure I have chosen for the Lest We Forget project is Abigail Adams. The biography that I chose to use is Abigail Adams, written by Woody Holton, a National Award finalist for Unruly Americans and the Origins of the Constitution. He also received a Guggenheim Fellowship and a Bancroft Prize for writing Abigail Adams. Abigail Adams' early years. Abigail was born on November 22nd of 1744 in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Her parents were William and Elizabeth Smith. She had three siblings, William, Mary, and Elizabeth. Abigail was subjected to many deadly diseases during this time period, one of which was dysphoria, which is described as throat distemper. This disease lasted over a year and took many children and teens. Abigail's family life. Abigail descended from the Quincy family on her mother's side. The Quincy's were a very powerful political family in the Massachusetts colony. She grew up in a wealthy family. She was born into the North Parish Congregational Church her father was a minister of for over 48 years. Abigail and her mother did not have the best relationship. Her mother, Elizabeth, believed the job of a woman was to take care of the home, look after the children, and nothing more. This did not sit well with Abigail. From a young age and well into her adulthood, Abigail was described as rowdy with a volatile disposition. Her parents feared she would be very outspoken and opinionated. These specific words were not used to describe a lady during this time in history. Little did her parents know that the exact qualities they feared would make Abigail Adams one of the most unforgettable first ladies. The most impactful relationship Abigail had was with her grandmother, Elizabeth Quincy. She understood Abigail the most. After all, wild colts make the best horses, her grandmother would say. Who was Abigail Adams? She was one of the strongest female voices in history. She was also one of the first advocates of women's equal education and women's property rights. Abigail played an important role as a political advisor for her husband John Adams, who was the second president of the United States of America. One of Abigail's greatest regrets in life was her lack of education. In a letter she later wrote to her granddaughters, she focused on a major flaw in society. She states, during her years of schooling, education in the best families went no further than writing and arithmetic. She always wondered if her education was her parents' motive to keep her out of school due to chronic illness or the traditional beliefs that girls did not need nor did they deserve formal instruction. Grandmother Quincy, however, did not have the same beliefs as Abigail's parents did. Instead, she encouraged Abigail's eager mind to acquire knowledge. From Smith to Adams. After many years of courting, John Adams and Abigail Smith were married on October 25th of 1764. They lived in a salt box cottage that her husband John inherited from his father in 1761. They had 5 children, and their names were Abigail, John, Susanna, Charles, and Thomas Adams. John's time away from home increased as his career advanced. This meant Abigail had to resume the role of deputy husband, as did many wives during this time. This meant that the wife took on all responsibilities the husband had left. No one considered it unfeminine for a wife to help out with harvest, work the bellows in a blacksmith shop, or staff a store counter. At first, Abigail's letters were used as a form of communication between her and her family. John and Abigail exchanged over 1,000 letters throughout their courtship and marriage. Her letters were an important part of history. They became a window into life during the Continental Congress and the American Revolution. She exchanged letters with many famous historical figures, such as Thomas Jefferson, Ben Rush, and Mercy Warren. Abigail and education. Abigail was educated from home. She read many books from her family library. She and her siblings were tutored by Richard Cranch, who was an instructor from England. She wanted nothing more than to go have a formal education. However, there were a small number of academies in colonial Massachusetts that permitted girls into their programs. Her parents refused to send her away to receive higher education. Abigail became more and more convinced that her lack of schooling was primarily a result of sex discrimination. Ending her schooling at a rudimentary stage did not leave her uneducated. Abigail's mind did not stop, and much of her education came from her peers, for she and her friends frequently read books and discussed them at length. Abigail and her friends sent each other many letters, not only to gossip, but by making self-conscious efforts to teach and learn. Abigail cannot be described as self-taught, for she and her friends educated each other. She was driven and refused to let her parents' choices have an effect on her in the future. Abigail's knack for friendly correspondences allowed her to rally women together to fight against the inequality shown to women regarding education. Remember the Ladies. Remember the Ladies was a letter written by Abigail Adams addressed to her husband John Adams in March of 1776. This letter stated, "I desire you would remember the ladies and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of the husbands. Remember all men would be tyrants if they could." Although John always thought of Abigail as saucy, she would be one of the first women to stand up and demand equality for the sexes. During this time, John was assisting in the writing of new laws, and it prompted him to revise them and make men and women equal. This specific phrase is remembered as one of the best known proto-feminist statements of the American Revolution era. Proto-feminism is a philosophical tradition that anticipates modern feminism in an era when the concept of feminism was still unknown, i.e., before the 20th century. Throughout Abigail's lifetime, married women were legally subdued in the person of their husbands. Later generations would describe wives as civilly dead. Lest we forget, Abigail was there at the beginning of it all. She was a fighter of women's rights, slavery, and the duties of married women to their husbands. Abigail knew that women had a valuable contribution to give to their nation, and they would fight just as hard as American men for freedom. Abigail was witty, strong, opinionated, and relied heavily on the teachings of her father to guide her morally throughout her life as a mother, wife, and historical figure. We should strive to not forget Abigail Adams because it is through her that we have detailed letters that are chronologically organized of the American Revolution era. Through her words and life experiences, we are able to see the lives of women during this time and the presidency of John Adams. These are a list of additional sources that I used for this project. Some additional photos. Top left is Adams' birthplace and childhood home in Weymouth, Massachusetts. Top right is a silhouette of former First Lady Adams. Bottom left is the first home Abigail Adams shared with her husband. The bottom right photo is an early 20th century description of the New England kitchen of Abigail Adams.